Good morning. Welcome at the EarthX Solution Stage here in Dallas. And welcome to Ed Begley. Ed, I need to ask you, we're in Dallas. How did you get here?
How did I physically get here today?
Yes, there's a reason why I asked that.
Well, I came in a flight. I took a plane. I used to drive cross country, but I'm getting to an age now I don't feel as confident in my driving. I drive an electric car here, but now I've learned to compromise, and I felt it was more important that I be here. And I bought some carbon offsets for my trip, and you do the best you can. That's the best you can do.
Well, isn't that so? And of course, I applaud you for all the examples you already have given to the world. You were a very early environmentalist, I would say.
Thank you.
And but yes, the idea of living it rather than talking about it, that has been a main part of your life.
Yeah, I started in 1970, and there was a lot of reason to get involved back then. I grew up in smoggy LA, and we didn't need a study about the healthcare costs for smog. We lived it every day. People had emphysema and asthma and lung cancer and stuff from that dirty air. And so one of the goals that they stated after the first Earth Day, I said, what are you going to do? It's just one day a year. What do you do the rest of the year? They said, we're going to clean up the air. We're going to clean up the water. And I knew the air needed some help, and so did the waterways in and around LA and the oceans near LA.
What I find interesting in your story is you start with air pollution. And I always wonder why today, when we talk about the environmental challenges, we always talk about global warming.
We talk about global warming as that's the more passe way to describe it now. It's climate change because it's kind of global weirding. You have more storms, stronger storms, and things like that. But certainly if we interrupt the Gulf Stream and what have you, as people are afraid we're going to with the effects of climate change, it could be very disastrous and could lead to freezing temperatures in the United Kingdom and Ireland and what have you.
I get that, but what I find so inspiring in your story, you were triggered to start taking care of the environment and focus on that issue because of air pollution in Los Angeles 50 plus years ago, which is a very good thing to do. But air pollution is something we all, suffer from, if you like. That is
Yes.
a uniting issue.
And you're right.
As it turns out, climate change is not a uniting issue; it's a dividing issue.
Right. And, it's a great success story in the environment, the story of Los Angeles and air pollution. Even though we have 4 times the cars in LA since 1970 and that first Earth Day, 4 times the cars, millions more people, we have a fraction of the smog. We cleaned it up. All the stuff we hoped would work did work. Cleaner tailpipes, cleaner factories, backyard barbecues even became cleaner. Everything that we did, big and small, led to cleaner air, even with those large amounts of people buying new cars and what have you. It's a big success story. And our waterways are a big success story. The way we clean up the Hudson River and the Cuyahoga River. The Cuyahoga River caught fire in 1969. And that's a bad sign, I think, when rivers catch fire. So that doesn't happen anymore because we have the Clean Water Act and the Clean Air Act, and we're able to clean up the air and the water very successfully. We should be proud.
Yes, and we should celebrate those, victories, if you like. But to what extent is politics a problem for addressing the issue of climate change?
That's a good question. I try to stay away from the politics of it. If you figure we're trying to communicate something to people, to sell them on something that we feel is important, you go to the front door and you get people engaged on climate change. They don't want to open that door to that issue. They're just not interested in talking about that. So I go around to the side door and have a more low pressure conversation about the following things. I don't bring up climate change. I say, how would you like to clean up the air in our cities like Houston, Bakersfield, and LA, lessen our dependence on foreign oil, and put money in our pockets? I never mentioned climate change 1 second. We can do those 3 things. And by the way, you also, without maybe intending to do it, you're doing something to combat climate change if you feel it's real or if you don't. I don't think climate change cares if you think it's real or not. I think it's going to do what it's going to do, but I think we can clean up the air in our cities, lessen our dependence on foreign oil, put money in our pockets with the right actions.
So what kind of response do you get when you tell people that story?
What's that?
What kind of response do you get when you...
Very positive, very people on board with that. Who could be against cleaning up the air in Los Angeles or Houston? It's a good thing. Who could be against lessening dependence on foreign oil? A very good thing. Putting money in our pockets doesn't get any better than that. You know, I learned all my environmental ethics from my father, who was an environmentalist without ever using the term. He was a conservative that liked to conserve. We saved our tin foil and string, and we turned off the lights and turned off the water. He was a son of Irish immigrants, my father was. You know, he had lived through the Great Depression. So all that stuff came naturally to him and to me. And he died within a few days of the first Earth Day in 1970. So I did a lot of this stuff to honor him. And right away, as promised, all the stuff that I did to protect the green, if you will, of the environment, I had another kind of green that was prospering. That's that stuff called cash in my pocket. You know, I was saving money because I did in the right order. Bike riding, if weather and fitness permits. Public transportation, if it's available near you. Home gardening, home composting. Turning off the power strips, of vampire power to save energy in that way. There's lots of things you can do. Energy efficient light bulbs, energy saving thermostat, all of it together. You can save a lot of money and protect the environment.
True. You don't want to talk about politics, and you're right about that. But wouldn't it be great if somehow, sometime, there would be trains again in the United States? How's that?
Yeah, I think we have to change. I think it's very important. You know, we're like fish in an aquarium that have learned how to nibble at the controls to the temperature and the settings in that aquarium, and we have no idea of what we've really done. And that's how we're starting to affect different important systems. I mentioned earlier something called AMOC, A-M-O-C, the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, and that's part of the Gulf Stream, and that's a big one, and the people who study climate feel is of great concern, so we should keep our eye on that and do everything that we can to, do the things I stated at the side door, and we'll get some benefits at the front door as well.
So you mentioned the big success of the air pollution in your home town of Los Angeles over the past 50 years. What other big success have you witnessed, in terms of environmental progress?
There's another good one. It has to do with CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons. They were found to be damaging to the ozone layer, and it created a big hole, mostly in the southern hemisphere, but a big hole in the ozone led to increased UVB for increased skin cancer and what have you, and other unfortunate effects. So people said, we're going to ban CFCs. And the fear was that if you did that, you wouldn't be able to afford a refrigerator anymore. You couldn't buy an air conditioner. They'd be too expensive. And that's not the case. You can still buy refrigerators and air conditioners, and they banned CFCs, and, and life and science went on. So we did that very successfully. I mentioned the Hudson River. People came back from serving our country in Vietnam to return to the line of work, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't do their job that they were employed at before they left for the service, and that was fishing. They were fishermen on the Hudson River, and the river had gotten so polluted you couldn't eat the fish. And they were talking about putting dynamite on a raft and putting it in the outfall pipe of one of these polluters. And I don't recommend any of that eco-terrorism, by the way. So they were considering doing that, and a guy named Bob Boyle said, you're talking about breaking the laws, what about enforcing the laws? There's a Safe Harbors and Rivers Act, and if we enforce that, what have you, we can get them clean up all these different outfall pipes, and they did just that. The Hudson River is a productive fishery now. So the Hudson River and the Cuyahoga River I mentioned, in 1969 had caught fire. There was so much chemical substance on the river, some of it flammable. So that's been cleaned up. The Cuyahoga River is very clean now. So we can do it. We have to set our mind to it and work together.
Is technology helpful for making the environment cleaner and healthier? Technology, is that a solution?
Say that again?
Is technology a solution for climate?
I think big time. I think technology is a great solution. I've used a lot of technology in my life to make my home more efficient. You know, the wonderful science and technology of solar. I've got a nice 9-kilowatt system on the roof of my house. I've got 4 separate zones for heating and air that are highly efficient, higher SEER rating and all those HVAC units. I've got 12-inch thick walls for good insulation, double pane windows for all the glass, passive solar design in the house, reclaimed wood instead of buying new wood for the floors, on and on. All that stuff was good for the environment, also good for my pocketbook because it saved me money. My monthly bills are very low. I have a heat pump to heat my water, the water that is not able to be heated by the sun. You know, I have a solar system to heat the water too, but some days it's cloudy and you still want hot water, and a heat pump takes care of that. So there's lots of exciting technology nowadays that people are using, and I've employed a lot of it in my home, and I achieved what they call LEED Platinum status. There's silver, gold, and platinum, and LEED is like a miles per gallon rating of your home, if you will, how efficient your home is. And so we got Rochelle and I, my lovely wife there in the front row. She wanted a beautiful French Mediterranean home. That's the design she wanted. And she didn't mind if I put in the walls. In fact, she was quite happy that I put in the walls and hidden on the rooftop things that were good technology. We had the look of the French Mediterranean home, which pleased her, and the highly efficient nature of the home, which pleased me.
Well done. So, but you said, of course, you make money that way because you save a lot of energy costs. I get that part. But the investment in creating all that, the solar panels, the extra insulation, that is also serious money.
It is.
Can everyone afford to do that?
No. When people say to me, they come up to me and say, Ed, I can't afford a 9-kilowatt solar array like you. I can't afford a autonomous driving fancy electric car like you have. And I say, neither could I when I started. You don't run up to the top of Mount Everest, you know, if you want to go achieve that peak. You know, you get to base camp and you get acclimated and you do what you can do. You pick the low-hanging fruit first. You do what's affordable to you. Many people ask me, say, Ed, I want to get solar in my house. Can you give me a number? And I write a website or a number down in hand. And they said, I asked for solar. Why did you give me a home energy audit number? I don't want a home energy audit. I said, because for every dollar you invest in reducing your demand to make your house more efficient, it'll save you $5 on the cost of your solar. So make your home more efficient first, and then you can start thinking about solar. And you have to do things in the right order, and that's very important because nobody has money to burn. And that's exactly the way I did it when I started. I'm not recommending people do anything that I had not done myself, and that's the best way to go.
You start with insulation.
Exactly, very simple stuff. Insulation, passive solar design, you know, whatever you can afford in that area, it's going to save you a lot of money in other technologies that you have that you're pursuing.
So what is the most exciting new opportunity that you see for environmental progress?
I think there's some stuff that I tried that I was very fascinated with and works very well. Nobody's ever heard of it that I know of. My home is the only one I've seen it installed in. It's something called Act on Demand. It's a circulating pump for your hot water. Those have been around forever, and people use them today, you know, in many homes and businesses in America. But the problem with it, you got that circulating pump running all the time, and that uses power, so you're using power to do that. And you're also, in effect, cooling the water by running it through the cooler underneath the house. So there's that. But what if you had a sensor in each room, like the bathroom and the kitchen? If you had a motion sensor, and that's just what it has. It has a motion sensor up in the ceiling. You walk into the kitchen, it turns on the circulating pump then and then only. So when you're asleep or you're out of the house, you don't have a circulating pump running all the time. You turn on your tap. It's 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Wow, it's hot right away. And you don't waste all that water. People are pulling a bucket with them in to take a shower, to fill it up with water, to use it in the garden later, doing all kinds of cumbersome things. But this system called Act on Demand, and I have no financial interest in this company. I'm just telling you who's doing good stuff out there. But they make that system, which is highly efficient and, you know, good in every way. Saves a lot of water, saves a lot of energy, and stuff like that. People try that, and they really are impressed with it.
Ed, you've been an environmentalist for over half a century. And that you're indeed one of the early ones, leading that new important movement. What is your message?
The message is we have to work together. The Clean Air Act was signed by Richard Nixon. The Clean Water Act signed by him later on the second try, I think. But we did a lot of these things together. And we have to reach across the aisle and come together to do the important work before us. You don't want to sit this one out. I think it's a big one where we're at environmentally now. You don't want to lose all the plant and animal species that we all depend on to survive. You want to protect that. And any intelligent tinkerer saves all the parts. And we want to make sure that we do that and have a healthy planet for ourselves, our children and grandchildren.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you so much. So nice to talk to you. Thank you.